Hi, we are here for a conversation, and we're going to be as candid and raw as we possibly can be. Sarah is our Director of Client Services at Back Bay, and I'm the Executive Director, and we want to really highlight the challenges of being unsheltered, being homeless, without shelter, without a roof over your heads during this incredible time of heat. Really over our entire country. I mean, every place is warmer than normal, and we attribute that, of course, to climate change and global warming and the fact that we've been trolloping on our environment and really doing it some damage.
Yeah.
And so with temperatures going up, we just kind of want to make an appeal to people that are good, common sense, God-loving, fearing people that might want to make a difference when it comes to the unsheltered in their communities. So Sarah, what would you like to say? This is actually, do you want to talk about why we're at this bench?
Yeah, it actually, my homeless friend, Patrick, actually died right here on this bench back in December. And since then, we've had 7 deaths heat related in the last month with our homeless population. So it just makes me very reflective that this is like people's final resting places on a bench.
Yeah.
And I just feel like as a community, we should be doing better than that.
And as I was driving in this morning, I live about 3 miles from here. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
3 miles from here, and I saw 4 people on different benches sleeping, probably acknowledging, I'm assuming they were homeless or unsheltered folks.
Yeah.
And so Sarah and I both have our waters with us, which a lot of our unsheltered folks don't.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd like to do for you folks, or like to suggest to make some change, actual real change, is carry a case of water in your car. And when you see somebody on the street corner asking for money, quote, panhandling.
Yes.
If you happen to see them, or you see somebody that looks homeless or appears homeless, just roll down your window, hand them a bottle of water. I think that's one thing you can do. It's simple, it's non-threatening, and it can really be a life-saving thing. And so Sarah and I, oh, go ahead.
So it makes this week when I came to work one morning, we had one of our homeless guests in tears, and he said, "Miss Sarah, can I just have some water?" And this was like before even 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "Well, yeah, let me just," and he says, "No, I've asked everybody and nobody will give me any water." And he said, "I think I'm gonna have a heat stroke." And I thought, it just broke my heart. Like, we can't even stop and give people just basic water. It doesn't have to be money. It could just be life-saving things like water or cooling towels or ice, anything to just help these people. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the perplexing issue when it comes to humanity, when it comes to us all being on this planet together, is homeless people are generally ignored. We don't like to interact because it's uncomfortable. It's odd. We place blame on them, and we say, well, they don't have a job, they quit their job, they don't want to work, they're lazy, they have substance abuse issues, and there can certainly be all sorts of reasons, but we don't blame people that are unsheltered because there's a lot of things that can happen in your life. We had a call yesterday, actually, from a veteran, and it was kind of after hours, and she left me a message, and she said that she's losing her housing because she cannot pay her taxes.
Yeah.
So she's a veteran, she's tried every resource, right? And so I called her back, and sure enough, you know, she's on a fixed income, she has some health issues, and she served our country, and yet she's going to lose her housing because she can't pay her taxes, which means she's probably going to go into substandard housing, if anything at all. Yeah. She probably will go out on the streets. Yeah. So people have all sorts of reasons they're unsheltered, and we don't place blame on them.
No. And then once you are sheltered, coming out of that is so difficult if you don't have identification, or you had a house fire, or for whatever reason you've lost your ID, your birth certificate, your social security card. The process to get those back can be weeks to months. And if you don't have any money, how do you get those things? Which is something that we definitely try to assist people with. But then you have and then you have every day, so we're walking from under the bridge over here.
Yeah, by the way, we didn't mention that.
Yes.
We're walking about 3 or 4 blocks in, it's probably about 88 degrees now, 90 degrees, high humidity.
Expected to be 117 today.
Yeah, so we've already seen about maybe 7 or 8 individuals that access our services Mike a day walking by us as we're sitting on that bench.
Yeah.
So this is the road, this is the street, which by the way costs millions of dollars because it's the entrance to Keesler, but yet we can't spend a little bit of money to build a shelter in our community, an overnight shelter. Yeah. So that's part of why we're out here today, is because we're in solidarity. I have a backpack, but all I got in my backpack is 2 towels.
Yeah.
You know, pretty light. And our unsheltered friends, our homeless friends, carry food, clothing.
Yeah. Everything on their backs.
Everything in a backpack.
Yeah.
This size, bigger, smaller.
Yeah.
And so we don't have an overnight shelter here in Biloxi. We're about 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And then we have another city that's the second largest city in Mississippi, Gulfport. They don't have a shelter.
No.
Salvation Army, but they only house a few families. And so what we're out here saying is, number one, we need some cooling shelters for the evening. We aren't able to open up because we're not permitted to do that as an overnight shelter. But in this excessive heat, people need to find a way out.
Yeah.
And at night, it's not really cooling down.
No. And I was complaining this morning that my air wasn't getting under 70 because it's so hot. And I think what a privilege it was to wake up and take a shower, where our homeless, we want them to move forward, but they're walking from wherever their camps are, could be further than even what we're walking, and they have to come down either to Loaves and Fishes and wait for a meal at 8 and 11, or on the days they don't feed, they have to walk quite a ways down here on Division Street to eat at Seashore Mission, then walk back to the Micah Day Center and get on a list to take a shower. They get on a list to take a shower. We have over 60 showers a day. They could wait there all day to take a shower. We have a case manager. They have to get on a list. Maybe they need those documents. Maybe they need help with a resume. They then sit on a list and they wait to meet with our case manager. So their whole day is filled up with survival.
Yep.
And then at night, they're not really allowed to sleep anywhere. Almost every place is trespassed now.
Well, part of the reason we were at the bridge is because that's one of the few places, although then they're kicking them out of there, but under the I-10 bridge, it leads some shade, and sometimes there's folks under there, but I understand they're not allowing them to stay there.
They got kicked off.
So where do they go?
The beach. They sleep on benches, which is just sad. There's no relief. There was a woman in here the other day, just terribly badly sunburned. No hat, no sunscreen. Just stop and give people some sunscreen. So people's whole day aren't filled with how do I move forward, it's how do I survive day to day, where do I get a meal, and they only get 2 meals a day. They don't have a dinner here. They have breakfast and lunch, and that's it. I know I like to have dinner every night and go home.
And we woke up this morning in our comfortable bed. And we were able to make a cup of coffee, or go to Starbucks and buy a coffee, or Jacked Up, and take a shower, and put on dry clean clothes. And then after our journey here, before we go meet the police department, actually to talk about the 7+ heat-related deaths, we can take a shower again, right? We've got access to that. That's our privilege, and that's our, it's a gift.
It's a gift.
We have the resources.
And I see on the paper yesterday there was 4 dogs that died in the heat, and yes, we need to protect our pets, but there's nothing about how do we protect the people. If dogs are dying in the heat, what about the people? And then a lot of our homeless friends have pets for emotional support. A lot of them have them as companionship. And these dogs are homeless too. I went out on the golf course recently, and there was 2 dogs out there. The homeless had said they hadn't had water in 2 days, which is where the last body was just found. The man was only in his early 60s and was a guest here at our day center and used our services. So we go out, we bring water, we bring dog food. But I just remember the woman saying, please, can I just have some water? I'm so thirsty. And in this kind of heat, the water is, it's life and death out here with water.
And the challenge is, we're assuming these are probably heat-related deaths, especially because if you've got health issues already and you haven't had regular checkups or regular medical care, this kind of extreme heat is going to do something. Now, many of our people sleep in tents. At night, the tent doesn't even really cool down.
No.
Right?
It's like a hot box.
It's like a hot box, right? And so there was one individual that was found, and he actually was decomposing in the tent.
they couldn't recognize his body after 2
right.
days.
An unsheltered person, we're not talking a campground here. We're just talking out in the woods.
Yeah.
Survival camping, right?
Yeah.
It's not glamping.
No, it's not glamping.
But I think it's just to me it's criminal that we in this country aren't doing something for unsheltered, because after all, to house somebody is probably going to be maximum $1,200 a month. By the time you rent an apartment, you get utilities.
Yeah.
You know what is our problem, and why won't our city here, our coast, help and fund? Because we've got some really great cities along here. We've got casinos that make fupo bucks and pay some pretty heavy taxes. Why don't we build a shelter? We don't want to necessarily go to some sources for money because it's too high barrier, and we need a low barrier shelter where those homeless, unsheltered folks can bring their support pets, and their pet. Many shelters don't allow that. I know back in Phoenix they don't. And so they make a choice: do I stay outside or do I let go of my pet?
And people will always pick their pets. I would pick my pet.
We will.
So we would pick our pets.
Like, we're so concerned about our pets outside. When I lived in Phoenix, I used to get little booties for my dog so I could take them out during the day because it was so hot.
It was too hot.
You know, and what do we do for our unsheltered people? They're human. But there's some stigma, scariness with unsheltered people.
We're housing a tarantula right now because it's too hot in the enclosure, and the homeless individual didn't want the tarantula to die, so we have it locked up. I know, we're all creeped. Nobody wants to go in the room with the tarantula right now, but I mean, we're doing the best we can. There, to be transparent, there's no more funding right now for housing. We're completely out of housing funding, probably until the next grant cycle. I think that's pretty much COC wide right now. So there is no housing. It's not, we just can't house them. There's just no more money. We're housing as many people as we can with the resources that we have. We're opening our day center up on Thursdays, where typically it's closed, so people have a cool place to sit, and we provide water, and we're trying to do Gatorade to get their electrolytes up, but the community is going to have to help. This is a community problem. That's going to need a community to say people deserve. Like, housing isn't a privilege; it's a right. Like, we have a right to be housed in affordable housing, and until we can bring our wages up to a livable wage. Some of these people have jobs. Like, the idea that they're not working is not truthful. We have people that are working at the casinos, working at the pizza place in the casinos. We buy their clothes for them. But the idea that they're not working is a misconception. They are working, but they're making minimum wage, which is not keeping up with the cost of inflation, is not keeping up with the rising cost of housing, and people are losing their housing. We had, I think, 3 families call that have ended up homeless. One woman's living in her van with 5 kids.
Well, and part of it is like the price of eggs have gone down. But other stuff goes up.
Still up,
Right? And housing is up, and energy is up. And with the tragic heat, energy bills are practically doubled for a lot of people. And this is across the country. Right?
This isn't
But Mississippi, we're the hospitality state. We have good people here. People like each other generally. And
if we don't, we just say bless their heart.
Bless you. Bless your little heart.
Bless your heart.
And that means screw you. But I think the beauty of the community here is I think they want to do something, they just don't know what to do. But I think the first step is the water, the energy bar. The next step is let's get busy and let's advocate with our politicians and our city councils and say we want an overnight shelter. We want to shelter people year long. Right? And I mean, we'll be a part of it. We'll help run it, and I know our other organizations would too, but we don't have the resources to build it.
No.
And the mythology that build it and they will come, it doesn't work.
No. They're coming regardless. We have good weather, we've got casinos, we've got a large VA that does a really good job here. Like, I think people come here hoping to move forward, but I don't know, it just breaks my heart. You know, even in the cold, on nights there was no shelter. Like, there was a day that the Mardi Gras floats were in the Civic Center and they couldn't open it for the shelter, and it was in the low 20s. And a homeless lady died right over by the hospital. So,
and isn't it 35 below that they open those shelters?
And they do.
So 35 degrees and below, they'll open the cold weather shelter, and we thank the Sweatmans for doing that.
Because it's all voluntary,
Right. Mindy Sweatman does that. It's fantastic. He organizes it, but it may be 4 or 5 times a year, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't get that excessive cold.
No.
But we also need that for summer heat, and we know we don't want to put that on another family of Sweatmans again. We want to put it on the community.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We need a shelter, and I think there's a misconception about what a shelter is and isn't. People think it's, hey, how are you, babe?
I like your shirt.
Yeah, so do I. I'm going to keep it.
Good.
So we have this misconception of what a shelter is, like a hurricane shelter where we just throw a bunch of cots in a metal warehouse. That's not the vision of a shelter. And if you do research and you go on, look in inner city Detroit and look at some of the shelters there, because we went to one of the shelters and people think, oh, it's going to be this drug infested, it's going to be, crime. It wasn't. It was clean. There weren't people milling about. And this is in the middle of one of the worst crime places in America, and they really took pride in that because that was their home. And we envision non-congregate shelter and very low barrier, and the services are there, the mental health, the addiction specialists, the housing services. Like, the less barriers, the better chances people have to moving forward.
Well, and one of the things I think that Sarah brings up is really, really important. So in that overnight shelter, or that shelter, day shelter, it's basically going to be open, right, for folks year round.
Yeah.
You can get your medications, you can have case managers that'll make sure you're compliant with your medications, because a huge number of unsheltered folks have mental health issues, chronic mental health issues, which keep them from thriving and actually keep them from gainful employment.
Yeah.
And so to be able to help these folks, right, and have a shower every day and have a place to stay, it's kind of like work release, right?
Yeah.
They go out, they work, and they come back, and
some
life will be much
transportation to
better.
the DMVs to get their driver's license.
Exactly.
There's no transportation right now to DMVs to even get a driver's license to get a job. So there's so many barriers to moving forward, and I'm sitting here like sweating down my back, and I'm thinking, they go in, they get a shower, they come out, and they start sweating again, and they say, well, go get a job. But we're taught back through high school, we're taught, you go in, you clean, you're presentable, you put your best self forward. How do you put your best self forward when you're homeless? Like,
you just can't.
I'm already sweating, and if they skip their shower to go out for the day to look for jobs, what's that look like when they go in? Would you hire somebody that doesn't look clean? Or, as a society, we would frown upon that. Now, I will say a lot of the casinos work really, really well with our homeless, but I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, they do.
If you're homeless, they will do everything in their power to make you have a job and help you keep your job. I do want to throw that out there, because actually the man that just got the job at one of the casinos came and told me, he says they know I'm homeless and they are working so hard to make sure I get hours, that I can work the hours, that I can come here in the mornings and take showers, so they put me in the afternoon. So I will say, when you get employment at the casinos, they do a really, really great job. And Loaves and Fishes was shot down for their building location. Yeah,
and the quote that will never leave me is, it passed. They said Loaves and Fishes could be Unjudged Sequel, the feeding program.
It's been a huge asset to that community.
Yep, the Planning Commission said yes, but the City Council said no. 2 people voted yes, the rest voted no, and I remember one woman standing up, because there were the opponents who were standing up and those who were pro, being Unjudged Sequel, which is a low-income area to begin with. Sorry, folks that live there. But this woman stood up and said, I'm a good Christian. That's how she started. I'm a good Christian, but, she said it twice, I'm a good Christian, but I don't want them in my neighborhood. But I'm a good Christian, and I know we should feed people and we should take care of them. But I'm a good Christian, I don't want them in my neighborhood. I'm kind of like, I'm not sure that's the way Jesus hung out.
No. And so for perspective, when they eat, they sit outside at a table with no shade, trying to eat a meal it's hot.
Which is where we're headed.
Yeah, we're actually going to show you what that's like to have to sit. There's just no relief. We have one gentleman that won't come in and use our day center and get cooled off at all, because it said it's too hard to transition from the cold to the heat again. So they just sit outside in the heat and the rain and the cold to eat, because that's the only option they have. And bless Loaves and Fishes for being the people in the heat, cooking the food and making sure these people are fed every day. Nina and Abe do a wonderful job with that, and they are, even during the holidays, they were here every single day feeding people where everybody else is probably at their homes with their families and enjoying that. They were here cooking turkeys and making sure people were fed the whole holiday, from Christmas through New Year's.
Yeah, we stayed open during the holidays, on Christmas Day even, because we felt it was cold. We had a cold snap, and they had a place to go at night, but not during the day. And you don't want problem, I guess, is that in my mind, the solution is simple.
Yeah.
It's a few $1 million,
Yeah.
which all of our cities could be able to throw in, right?
Yeah.
To build housing, to have an overnight shelter first,
Yeah.
and then we build low-income housing or affordable housing, which
Yeah.
we at Back Bay are doing, but nobody can keep up with the demand right now.
No, and we're personally seeing an increase in homelessness. This time last year we would maybe have 30 to 35 showers, and now we have somewhere between 60 to 70 a day.
Yeah.
Some of those are truly homeless. Some are here because, you know, food stamps doesn't buy shampoo and body wash and toilet paper, and if you have no income, we can help you provide those things, but you have to take a shower. So some people are sheltered, but they come in for community because this is who they know. I had a man tell me once he belonged nowhere, and that has stuck with me for the longest time because he said, I'm housed, but I don't have anything to offer anybody. He said, I'm really kind of homeless in a house. He said, but I don't belong here or there. And it made me so sad to be so unrecognized and kind of uncared about.
Well, because they lose their community too when they're sheltered. And so I think, you know, for us, this is really our call to action. We want people to respond. We have a town hall coming up. Can't remember the date.
On the 22nd.
22nd, thank you. Town hall, I think it starts 5 o'clock at our Blues Club, 5:30. Ground Zero Blues Club. Please come. And we'll have some examples of shelters. We're going to talk with various people who have seen kind of a tiny home community, which we've also had some tiny bedrooms on wheels that we've kind of been moved off the property we intended. So we're just hoping that you folks that are seeing this, that it starts to kind of jog your heart and your spirit and encourages you to be creative and to find ways to make a difference.
Yeah.
You can certainly call us and find out how to make a difference, because we're probably the most prolific organization here on the coast that does this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is actually where people sit and eat. They've tried to move it under at least some shade and stuff. And they cook in the trailer. They don't have any air conditioner in here. I'm sure Abe will show it to us. You wanna see?
Yeah.
Morning, Robert.
So we have a big fan out here.
Yeah.
People as cool as they can. And this is our food trailer where they do cooking.
Yep.
Hi. And we're just really grateful for these folks for what they do. Yeah. Hi.
So they cook in here, and then they come over here and they get in line to get their meals, and then they can sit out here and eat at 8 and at 11. I'll tell you, at 11, this heat is awful out here.
95, high humidity.
Yeah. This is the heat index.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing, and this is Abe, the best cook in town. He cooks here, 4 days a week for these people, and he's an incredible human. So this is the day in the life of the homeless, and then they come in here and they wait to take showers. Do we want to show them what that looks like?
Yeah. So Sarah, let me ask you, what do you think the answer is to unsheltered into homelessness in our country and in our community? You've been doing this a long time.
I would say, and this is not just for Mississippi. I think this is a nationwide pandemic. People need low barrier access to mental health services.
Low barrier.
Low
right?
barrier.
Anybody can go.
Easily accessible.
Easily accessible.
Affordable medication.
You don't have to do certain things or be certain things to get in.
You know, mental health, and I'm somebody that struggles with mental health. As a person that has struggles with mental health, and I see people with struggles with mental health, I know what it is when I don't have my medication, and I would say I'm a pretty high functioning adult living in a home and have a job, but there's days where that's a challenge. So people that don't have access, don't have insurance, don't have medications, I think that's a travesty, and I think that keeps a lot of people in homelessness. And then a lot of times when people don't have access to medication, they have co-occurring issues like drug and alcohol addiction. I know on the coast we do not have a detox facility.
Yep.
That's a problem. So we have individuals that have been using for long periods of time. Now here we practice what we call harm reduction. So it's essentially not telling people how to live their life, but making it a safe place to receive things that might make it cleaner, safer, you know, safe sex, safe use, things like that. So that's important to us. But the drug and alcohol pandemic, and especially post-COVID, has been a really interesting phenomenon in that people aren't seeking rehabs like they used to, and we haven't really found an answer as to why that is, but it used to be there was no beds available.
Yeah.
You had to wait forever to get in.
Yeah.
Now, there's always beds available, and people aren't seeking rehabs.
Well,
And,
something changed during COVID. I mean, I think mental health issues went up for folks.
oh yeah, that isolation.
Isolation, and
It's so hot.
it's
I
like,
think there's like sweat just
Yeah.
running down my back.
we think about how people live with this every day,
Yeah.
right? And if their first priority is getting a meal, finding a place to sleep, not being kicked out by whoever's going to kick them out, whether it's the property owners or the
Yeah.
police, to be worried about your mental health issues and
Agreed.
worried about substance abuse. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was in that situation, I'd probably choose to drink a bit.
Yeah, I
right?
met this man once that said that he was an alcoholic, and I said, well, we talk about that, and we don't ever ask why, because that's a very judgmental question. We just,
Yeah.
what led to that, And he said, my wife and children all died during Hurricane Katrina, and while sometimes Katrina seems so far removed from us, I think there's still this generation now that's growing up that were children during that time, and we watched a documentary recently about nobody ever asked the children how they were during this really scary time, and I think we're still, we think it's so far removed. I didn't live here during Hurricane Katrina, but this gentleman said his wife and children died, and I thought, I might be an alcoholic too if I lost my partner and my children.
Well, alcohol is used for some people escape.
Yeah.
Some it just turns the mind off,
Yeah.
and for some it's just a release from everyday life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not high. I can get involved, and I think as Sarah and I have said, it's simple. On one hand, right? It's about having water, and if you give money to people, I know we have this thing where we're not supposed to give to panhandlers, but seriously, people are all concerned about, I want to say this, concerned, well, I don't know what they're going to do with my money. Well, you know what? Nobody asks me what I do with my money, so I'm not going to be asking other
No.
people. I don't ask Sarah what she does with her paycheck, or the guy behind the camera here.
No,
I don't
yeah.
ask Kevin, what do you do with your
Yeah.
money? But I think so. I think the response is simple. I think it's also to call our city hall, our city council, to call state representatives and say, look, we need overnight shelters. We need to find ways to house the unsheltered folks, advocate for the community. And it's one thing that really sparked this for Sarah and I was seeing that article that she sent me about dogs.
4
Take
dogs
care of
died.
your dogs in the heat, and dogs are dying from the heat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
nothing's been said about homelessness.
No.
So we called our police assistant chief,
Yeah.
and we said, can we quote you on this? And he said, yeah, there have been 7 heat-related deaths, right? And we're kind of like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Why
Yeah.
isn't anybody communicating about that? So I think advocacy, I think actually talking to homeless folks, if you're comfortable. I know if you're a woman, it's a bit more dangerous, or
Yeah,
a dangerous
could be, yeah.
feeling. But talk to them, interact, come here and find out this is a safe place for you to basically interact with unsheltered
Yeah.
people, to find out these are the stories, right?
Yeah.
And make no assumptions and judgments on why people are homeless.
Yeah.
What else would you say?
I would say, get involved. Carry things. I always carry stuff in my trunk. I carry cooling blankets, like the little electric fans you can just put batteries in because they don't really have places to charge. Tarp, shade, something. We've talked about getting cooling stations set up, even if it's just some plastic poles with a tarp and maybe a fan, just some places for people to sit. And when you see people, don't call the police. Don't call the police and ask them to run people off.
No.
Just have a conversation, direct them to Back Bay. Maybe they don't know the services that we offer here, and we can help try to move them forward in whatever ways we can. But I'd say, advocate. We need a shelter, and the shelter isn't going to hurt the community. It's not going to drive your housing prices down. It's not going to be a drug. We have a wonderful police department in Biloxi and Gulfport.
We love our.
Yeah, they're not going to let it turn into some drug-infested, hole. It's just really a place for people to come and receive services in one area, because if your whole day is spent going around to 7 and 8 organizations to get help, there's no time to move forward.
And I think the thing too, I've heard people say so often, like, oh my gosh, these certain cities are an absolute mess because there's so many homeless, like San Francisco, like Portland, oh, it's a mess, there's so many homeless people. Stop marginalizing the homeless and stop saying they're destroying our cities, because it's our problem.
It's our problem.
We've created a culture. We're capitalists, right?
Yes.
And people with the money rise to the top and the rest stay down. And so start being a part of the solution and stop blaming.
And I say, if you're going to say you're a good Christian, remember that Jesus said, what you do for the least of us, you do for me.
He said you give a cup of cold water, you get some clothes. I'm naked, you clothe me.
He fed them. Yeah.
He fed them.
Yeah.
And the people that weren't doing that kind of got some pretty stiff words.
Yeah. So even if you're a good Christian, there's still a call to action by
Or a
Jesus
good
himself.
Muslim.
Yeah, a good Muslim. Yeah.
Or a good Jew.
Yeah.
Jews. I love the Jewish community because they are so active in helping the unsheltered. And we don't have a big Jewish population down
If you have no religion, just go by the golden rule.
It's the human thing to do,
You don't
right?
even have to have a
Be a
religion,
human.
just be a good human being. So people matter. I had a shirt on yesterday that says you matter. People matter. All races, all color, all religions, all sexual identities. Everybody matters and everybody deserves basic human kindness, and more than that, acknowledgement.
In just little moments. I'm assuming you all bake cupcakes. You can get a mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, walking out of our mission house, we celebrated the retirement of one of our staff, our director of development, Laura, and we had extra cupcakes. And I just brought some cupcakes down to the homeless folks, and they were like overjoyed to just have a beautiful cupcake.
Yeah.
Simple thing that would cost us what?
Yeah.
$3 to buy the box, the mix.
Yep.
So there's strange, simple, odd things you can do, but it makes a huge difference.
We have a food pantry. If you're not comfortable, we have a day center. If you're not comfortable bringing the water, bring it here. We will distribute
Bring
it.
tons of food.
Bring food. Bring
running
whatever
out.
you want to help with. If you're not comfortable doing it, you can bring it to people that are doing
And
it.
fresh fruits and vegetables.
Oh yes, we need fresh fruits. And
We need
vegetables.
underwear for men and women.
Yeah, deodorant, sunscreen, hats.
Deodorant, yeah, right?
Because it's a sweaty mess out there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I hope it's a call of action. And I hope it raises awareness that more than just dogs are suffering, although I don't deny we should take
We
care of
love
our
our
pets
dogs,
too.
we love our dogs.
But there's homeless pets as well, so.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us today, and we really appreciate whatever you can do. You can certainly call us. You'll find our number on the screen.
Yep.
Ask us questions. I guess we're soliciting phone calls.
Yes, you
But
did
we
that.
really are soliciting action, right?
Yeah.
We want people to act on behalf
Absolutely.
of unsheltered, because we're all in this together. It's going to take a village to change it.
Absolutely. So thank you for coming on this hot walk with us.
Yeah, thank you.